JD Vance only cares about one thing, himself, and advancing his own career. And sure, in some ways, that's paid off for him now that he's the vice president of the United States. But let's be honest. Being Donald Trump's vice president means he's had to completely sell out his values, his friends, and even his own family. That kind of betrayal eventually catches up to you. And it looks like it's finally happening. New reports point to growing turmoil in his marriage, just as a scandal erupts following his public attacks on his wife. We'll break all of that down, and much more about JD Vance in just a moment. But first, if you could take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, it really helps support what we do. Now let's start with the latest lies Vance is spreading about the government shutdown.
I wanted to ask you, I know you said you're going to talk with folks on Capitol Hill after they open the government back up. If this keeps going on, would you consider getting everyone together like you did before the shutdown here at the White House to talk? And just quickly on nuclear, does the new testing make the world less safe?
So I'm not going to answer. I've answered all the questions about nuclear testing that I'm going to answer. I want to talk about the government shutdown here, and I'd like to focus the questions there. But to your point, look, I've never said we're not going to talk to congressional Democrats until they reopen the government. What I've said is we are not going to give in on policy demands under the threat of hostage taking. I mean, if any moderate Democrat or any Democrat period from the United States Senate wants to come over, they're welcome to walk into these doors in an hour. I'm happy to talk to them about how to end the government shutdown, but it's actually very simple because there's a clean CR, as you heard from everybody, that would reopen the government. What we're also saying is that we're not going to allow anybody, Democrat or Republican, to effectively threaten any policy demand and to place that upon reopening the government. You don't reward hostage taking. If Democrats want to talk about healthcare policy, let's talk about healthcare policy. If they want to talk about tax policy, let's talk about tax policy. They don't get to come in here and say, you give us everything we want, or we're going to shut down the government and not pay our pilots and not pay our air traffic controllers. It's ridiculous, disgraceful, irresponsible behavior. There have got to be 5 more moderate Democrats in this entire city who are willing to work with us to reopen the government.
Let's start with 2 key points about this government shutdown. First, and this has been obvious from the start, the blame lies squarely with Donald Trump and the Republican Party. For the past month, they've been trying to convince everyone that their so-called landslide mandate in 2024 gave them total control, claiming it was the biggest victory in history and that America had suddenly become more conservative. But now that they're actually in power, we can all see the truth. Trump is weak and ineffective, and their agenda is deeply unpopular across the country. The second point is about the dishonest narrative Republicans have been pushing to justify this shutdown. Their attacks on food assistance programs that millions of Americans depend on. They're spreading the false claim that people use SNAP benefits irresponsibly, buying things like cookies or soda with taxpayer money. But that's not a problem. People deserve the basic dignity of choosing what they eat. The real waste comes from the billions spent on foreign military aid or Trump's endless golf trips, not from someone buying a snack at the grocery store. Yet, conservatives stay silent about that. JD Vance, of course, doesn't, but only because his outrage is completely insincere. That kind of hypocrisy isn't just hurting the country. Even Jen Psaki has pointed out how it's now creating problems for his own marriage.
I think the little Manchurian candidate, JD Vance, wants to be president more than anything else. Yeah. I always wonder what's going on in the mind of his wife. Like, are you okay? Please blink 4 times.
Yes.
We'll come over here. We'll save you. And that he's willing to do anything to get there. And that your whole iteration you just outlined, I mean, he's scarier in certain ways.
He's smarter.
In some ways. And he's young.
Yeah. And ambitious.
And agile in the sense that he is a chameleon who makes himself into whatever he thinks the audience wants to hear from him. Now, what's also true, though, is JD Vance is not, he's in some ways goodish on paper if you like what he believes in. I don't know. But I don't know that he can take the whole movement with him.
No way.
I don't think so either.
There's no riz.
It's got no riz, right?
None.
And he just is a little odd. And
Totally.
so Trump's odd in a different way. So I'm skeptical of that. So yeah, he's got to, I mean, everything going on right now, and I think we have to be very clear-eyed about this, is about trying to manipulate the public around elections. And
Now, I don't know that much about the personal feelings of Usha Vance. She usually just seems tired and sad and angry. But what I can certainly say is she deserves this. Like, I don't have any sympathy for someone who signed up for the JD Vance experience, signed up for the Trump administration. If she wants out, then take it. Like, I know, like, Jen Psaki was like, oh, blink twice and we'll save you. I won't. Like, why do we have to care about the feelings of Usha Vance? Someone who has sold out her friends, her family, people like her. I don't know. Especially when her husband continues to make a mockery of her background, literally attacking her, which blew up in his face right here. Vance blasted as Hindu-phobic for wanting Usha to swap religions. Vice President JD Vance has been accused of hypocrisy and Hindu-phobia after declaring he wanted his wife to convert to Christianity. Speaking at a Turning Point USA event in Mississippi, Vance was asked by an audience member about his marriage to Usha Vance, America's first second lady of Hindu faith. The pair married in an interfaith ceremony in Kentucky in 2014 with a Hindu pandit in a Christian officiant officiating. They now have 3 children who are being raised as Christians. You are raising 3 kids in an intercultural, racial, religious household. The woman in the audience asked the vice president during the event's questions and answer session, "How are you teaching your kids not to keep your religion ahead of their mother's religion?" Vance, who converted to Catholicism 2019 as he was laying the groundwork for a political career, replied by saying that when he met Usha, "I would consider myself an agnostic or an atheist, and that's what I think she would have considered herself as well." Now, most Sundays, Usha will come with me to church, he added, as I've told her and I've said publicly. And now I'll say in front of 10,000 of my closest friends, do I hope she will eventually somehow move to be the same thing that I was moved by in church? Yeah, I honestly do wish that because I believe in the Christian gospel, and I hope my wife eventually will come to see it the same way. The vice president added that if Usha decided not to convert, then God says everyone has free will. But while Vance's remarks were met with applause from the MAGA Republicans and the Christian conservatives who make up much of Turning Point's base, he also faced backlash from other quarters. The Times of India, the nation's 3rd biggest newspaper and the world's largest selling English language daily, observed that Vance came across as Hindu-phobic. Of course, JD Vance isn't concerned about who he betrays, offends, or targets, because there's nothing real grounding him. He has no core values, no consistent beliefs. He'll change his tone, his story, and even his identity to suit whatever benefits him in the moment. But that act eventually falls apart when people see through the performance, and at this point, everyone can see just how fake and uncomfortable JD Vance really is. The fact that he's willing to publicly throw his own wife under the bus doesn't just highlight the deep-rooted racism within MAGA circles, it also reminds us that JD Vance is not someone who can be trusted. None of them are. And it's important that we keep saying that out loud, because while JD might wear his hypocrisy like a mask to hide or sometimes reveal his bigotry, we can't ignore the other people doing the same thing to fuel these hateful attacks. Representative Jasmine Crockett called that out perfectly in her recent remarks.
Even though modern-day policing was born out of slave patrols, when I was speaking with one of my friends who is a federal law enforcement officer, he told me that one of the things that he has observed is that the culture is created at the top. And when I think about it, it absolutely makes sense. If you have somebody at the top that will not tolerate the types of things that we're seeing, then maybe those under you won't do it. But we know that we have a racist at the top. He has called himself the head law enforcement agent in this country, and therefore everybody has decided that it is okay to take off their hoods and mask up as ICE agents. Now, we've talked about how they have hidden themselves, but again, it reminds me of the Klan. That is why I propose the Clear ID Act, to make them identify themselves, because it is dangerous for law enforcement as well as individuals, because you don't know, especially with ICE going around and doing the things that thugs do. They're busting out windows, they're breaking into homes, they're breaking people's arms. This doesn't sound like law enforcement, it sounds like thuggery to me. But just like you can have somebody at the top that sets the tone for ugliness going down, you guys are blessed, because in the city of Chicago, you have a mayor. You have a mayor that has decided that he will not back down. He will not bend to this administration, and instead he will stand up for the people. You have a man of valor that is going up against a villain, and I think that we have to make sure, especially while we're in his city, that we recognize his leadership, because it is invaluable.
There must be real accountability for those responsible for the criminal actions carried out under this administration. That includes ICE and others involved. There should be investigations, arrests, and serious legal consequences. These individuals violated the law, and without justice, we can't begin to repair the damage they've done. We'll keep calling this out and pushing for the truth here every single day. If you want to support that work, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. And if you made it to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I will see you soon.